Now, there must be something in the water in Hartlepool. The town elected a man dressed as a monkey as its mayor and had arguably Labour's most colourful figure as its MP. Peter Mandelson has stepped down. He was the MP and he's off to Brussels. And the resulting by-election on September the 30th looks like it'll get a lot of people talking about Hartlepool's politics again, because it's going to test all the parties. So can the Lib Dems take a safe Labour seat? Can the Conservatives give UKIP a seeing to? Gillian Hargreaves has been to Hartlepool to talk strategy.
You'd think it would be Labour through and through. But this month's by-election in Hartlepool is not a straightforward business. There's everything to play for.
Labour Party membership has fallen away, and in the past 12 months the party's lost 2 seats at Westminster and it came close to losing a third. There's a perception that Labour isn't doing enough to appeal to its own supporters, and yet it's essential that it gets its core vote out on polling day. The Liberal Democrats have done extremely well in recent by-elections. They've taken 2 safe Labour seats. Confidence is high, but they've got to keep the momentum up, because if they don't do as well in Hartlepool, they could be weakened. And the Conservatives, they've struggled to be seen as a credible alternative to the government. In general elections in Hartlepool in the past, they've come second. But if they wage a poor campaign in this by-election and come third or even fourth, there's a real risk that could damage them.
Beyond the dereliction, the town is changing. They're clearing the dockside, ready for a new, massive gas pipeline running under the North Sea. Labour got 59% of the vote here at the last general election. So is there anything for them to worry about? Well, yes. Remember those safe Labour seats of Brent East last year and Leicester South this year? Labour lost out to the mighty Liberal Democrat by-election machine. The party only managed to cling on to the Birmingham constituency of Hodge Hill by the skin of its teeth in July. Right now, Labour cannot take any by-election for granted, even if it is in Hartlepool. And Hartlepool is not a predictable Labour seat. It's enjoyed a lot of political colour. The election of Hangus the Monkey, the football team's mascot, as mayor 2 years ago, showed that the town's support of Labour isn't always in the bag. It's also had a colourful MP. Voters are in 2 minds about Peter Mandelson. Yes, he put the town on the map, but he's also brought unwelcome publicity. And there was that bizarre speech at the last general election.
I am a fighter and not a quitter.
Well, now he has quit, and Labour has placed great store on its new candidate, Ian Wright, Hartlepool born and bred, and so far not controversial.
Hello, Mrs. Herbert. I'm Ian Wright. I'm the Labour Party candidate.
His campaign, like all the others, is being run by a party bigwig, in this case, Fraser Kemp.
Fraser, we look at your campaign and it's a very personal attack on the Liberal Democrat candidate. It is, though. You're talking about her stance on drugs, the fact that she doesn't even live in the area. And yet you're the party of government. Surely this is because you're under pressure from them.
Well, first of all, the Liberal Democrat 20 days ago claimed to live out near Darlington, and today she's claiming to live in Hartlepool. I think it is a question of character, it's a question of trust, and the people of Hartlepool will decide on the 30th of September. But also, I think any candidate, and the Liberal Democrat candidate, in one of her first utterances in the campaign, actually said that when out canvassing, people in Hartlepool were drunk, had a large dog, or were in a state of semi-nakedness. Now, in 30 years of fighting in by-elections, I've never known any candidate of any party who's actually started off by insulting the electorate.
Listening to the voters of tomorrow, the Liberal Democrats' Jodie Dunn. Her party's running an equally hard campaign. They say the government plans to close the local hospital and run services down. Labour says it won't. There's a risk, though, that claim and counterclaim could backfire for the party strategists.
Lord Renaud, isn't your campaign looking increasingly weak? You're focusing on the hospital, claiming it might close, and yet the Prime Minister and the Secretary of State have both said, absolutely, it and its services are safe with us.
People in Hartlepool don't believe that. Our campaign's going incredibly well, and Jodie Dunn will be there or thereabouts on polling day in a very tight finish between her and Labour. Perhaps a few years ago, people might have believed Tony Blair, but now when he says there was no threat to the hospital, people in Hartlepool know better.
You say it's going to be a close call. This is one you've absolutely got to win. Seats like Hartlepool are the sorts of seats you've got to win if you want to be a credible opposition. If you don't win here, you're always going to be the party in third place, aren't you?
Well, we want to win. The Conservatives are certainly out of the race. We're certainly close to winning. But actually, if we were to win Hartlepool, we'd win a pretty good majority in Parliament. But I think Jodie Dunn is so fantastic that I think she will win this by-election.
And what about the Tories? They look like a uniform force now, here protesting against faceless bureaucrats, but their campaign has been criticised for being slow to get going. Their candidate, Jeremy Middleton, was only chosen 3 weeks ago.
Dr. Fox, your campaign, even by your own people, has been described as a shambles. How do you answer the charge?
I think it's a very good campaign. It's a very good candidate. We're campaigning on the issues that really matter to people. Our candidate's getting a very good welcome on the doorstep. We're finding that people are interested in what the Conservatives are saying. They understand that we're campaigning on the issues that matter to them, on crime, where there's been a big rise in crime here, on the local hospital, which is threatened with closure, and on the regional assembly, which will only produce people here more bureaucrats, more politicians and more tax, which are the three things that they don't want.
You're talking a brave message, but you don't really stand a chance here, do you? At the very best, you've got to come a credible second to look like the party of opposition.
Well, this is not an area where we've had traditional political strength, but that doesn't matter. We'll go out and fight for every vote we can get because we've got a government that has let people down. They feel very disillusioned. They feel that the Prime Minister can't be trusted. And I think that the most important thing in re-establishing trust is to talk about the issues that matter to voters here, not that matter to politicians in London.
The Conservatives should be worried because they also face pressure from the anti-European UK Independence Party. That party came second here in the European elections in June.
UKIP may be small, but they're not to be sniffed at. They think they've tapped into a deep unease about the European Union, and their candidate, Stephen Allison, plans to scoop up disaffected Conservative voters.
Piers, where does all of this leave the Conservative Party, do you suppose, in this by-election?
In fourth place.
You're absolutely convinced you will overtake them?
Yes, I've no doubt about that. The Conservative Party does not have a real presence in Hartlepool any longer. That became very clear in the European election campaign. It's obvious in local elections. They don't put up candidates in many of the seats. I think they'll be clearly in fourth place here.
Morning all. Good to see you.
Hello.
Hello. Morning, sir. Hello there, I'm Michael Howard.
Even the leaders of the parties are keen to do their bit in the Hartlepool by-election campaign. The only published poll so far shows Labour well in the lead. But this is a dummy run for the next general election. Everyone knows they have to work at full throttle to maximise their votes.
Gillian Hargreaves reporting. If you're watching in the northeast, there is more on that by-election in just a minute. A full list of candidates standing at the Hartlepool by-election is available on our website at bbc.co.uk/.
Now, here in Hartlepool, there's politicians on every street corner. Robert Kilroy-Silk was here yesterday promoting the UK Independence Party, and a whole clutch of cabinet and shadow cabinet ministers is expected in the run-up to polling day. Now, Liberal Democrats believe they can overturn Peter Mandelson's 14,000 Labour majority. But here's just one voter who says he'll be switching allegiances this time.
I was an active trade unionist for 30 years. I led the bus industry for a number of years in Hartlepool. And I never thought I would vote anything else but Labour for the rest of my life. I intend to vote Liberal Democrat. I feel that over the last 7 years the Labour Party has let me down and let the working man down. It's like tearing a part of your heart out that you've got to do this. But they've failed to implement many of the improvements that would have helped the quality of men's lives at work. And I feel this was not the party that I elected, and I can no longer continue to vote for them because their policies are not of the ideals and beliefs and values of socialism as I know it. We have a considerable drug problem. We still have poor housing. We have a great deal of antisocial behaviour, and these issues are just not being addressed by the existing Labour government.
trying to put the main party candidates through their paces, which is quite appropriate because we're here at a leisure club. Ian Wright, first of all, it's the loss of core voters like Bob Smith that we saw in the film, isn't it, that's led you to pour immense amount of resources into what should be a safe Labour seat that should win easily?
I think Labour's delivered an awful lot in Hartlepool. We've introduced the minimum wage. We've got Shoe Start, which hundreds of kids have been benefiting from in deprived wards. 17,000 pensioners have actually received the winter fuel allowance.
Why is Bob Smith switching if you're so
fantastic?
fantastic?
Well, I'm actually surprised that Bob Smith is switching. He specifically mentioned antisocial behaviour. That is the key concern of my campaign. I think only Labour are being tough on antisocial behaviour. And I would say that the Liberal Democrats, where it really mattered in Parliament when they could have allied with Labour to tackle antisocial behaviour, every single time they voted against the government. I'm also surprised that Mr Smith's moving to the Liberal Democrats if he's a traditional Labour voter, because the Liberal Democrats in their Orange Book are lurching so far to the right that not even the Tories were advocating the funding of the National Health Service by social insurance schemes. That's essentially the first step to privatising the NHS.
OK, right. I mean, Jodie Dunn, you want to answer some of those points, I'm sure, but I mean, you quoted on the internet in your little biography saying this is basically, this is just an election, it's not life and death. It's a good job, isn't it, because the polls put you behind.
The polls may put us behind, but you know something, I'm feeling really, really upbeat about this campaign. I've been campaigning now for 8 weeks, and the reception I have had on the doorstep has been so warm and so receptive. And what people are saying to me is that for the first time in 40 years, they feel like they've got a credible alternative to Labour. Labour may think this is a safe seat, but actually what people are saying to me is we want a change, we want a chance for something new. Is the poll
so wrong, though? It put you 25 points behind.
I think the poll is wrong because it doesn't reflect what people are saying to me on the doorstep. What I've said to people is give me a chance to show that I can do things differently. If you don't like what I do, fair enough, you only have to keep me for 6 months, the general election is around the corner. But I think I can make a difference, and I think the people know that I can make a difference. And we'll see what they say next week on Thursday.
Hey, Jeremy Middleton, I mean, the Conservatives will be happy just to avoid finishing fourth, won't they? In this, you've got no chance of winning.
Look, no one knows what the result is going to be. We'll let the people of Hartlepool decide. But what I can tell you is there's an awful lot of people who haven't made up their mind yet. And I can also tell you that the overwhelming reaction on the doorstep is that people feel let down by Labour. They've been in power for 7 years and they've failed to deliver.
There's no evidence they're turning to you, though, is there?
Well, we'll see what the result is on September the 30th. I can tell you on all the main issues, when we discuss them with people, overwhelmingly they agree with us. They want to be much tougher on crime, they want to be much tougher on drugs. And I think if people vote for what they believe, then I'm going to get a very good result.
Stephen Allison, I mean, you've not got much to offer here, have you, really? You're a single-issue party.
Well, I would disagree with that. And actually, on the point that Jodie made about people being on the doorstep, anyone from Hartlepool will tell you we're a very, very friendly and open bunch, and we don't actually, like to tell people to get lost. So a lot of the stuff on the doorstep that Jodie is getting actually is just good manners, and we are good-mannered people. But
have you got any chance of winning? And that's all very nice.
Yes, we do have a very good chance of winning because the Hartlepool electorate are broadly Eurosceptical, and we are the only party who will actually tell you that we are committed to removing ourselves from the European Union, and that's what people want. Once you get past the local issues, which are very important, but I think we all agree on local issues. Once you get past them, people are saying to me, "Oh, of course, I don't want to be in Europe," and neither do we, and we're the only party who are saying it.
Okay, I think there probably is room for disagreement on some of the local issues, and we'll come to that. Jodie Dunn, you've focused your campaign very much on the hospital, but there's no actual threat, as we heard to the film, to the hospital. There's been reassurances it's not going to close.
Well, before I answer that, can I just say to Stephen that if people in Hartlepool have such good manners, it really must be fantastic manners that they've got, because yesterday we were in Labour Heartland and 30 of them put posters up in their window. So that really is, if that's just good manners,
well, what about the hospital?
I think it reflects what people think. On the hospital, people don't trust the government. We've had assurances from Tony Blair over the last few days that the hospital won't shut.
So what's the problem?
Don't you think it's a bit odd that this hospital campaign has been going for 3 years, and it's only when we suddenly get to a by-election that they wheel in the big guns, and in comes Tony Blair.
So he's
we're
lying,
going to shut the hospital. He said in the paper last week there was never an intention to even think about shutting the hospital. Well, let me ask you, why is it that 30,000 people in Hartlepool have signed a petition then? Are they all stupid? I don't think they are. There is an issue.
You're scaring them into this.
I'm not scaring them at all. Labour Party know if they ignore this issue, they will lose this seat. They are terrified of losing this seat. This town wants to keep its hospital, and Tony Blair is not giving them the assurances they need. They don't trust him.
Let's put that to Ian Wright. I mean, is this a smokescreen that will just disappear after the election and people will have their hospital under threat?
The hospital issue has been used as a political football by other political parties, scaring people on the doorsteps, demoralising staff. I find it disgusting and distasteful. The Prime Minister and the Health Secretary categorically assured the people of Hartlepool that that hospital will not close. The Health Secretary was up on Friday and actually signed the petition to save our hospital. He's aligning himself with 30,000 people of Hartlepool. That hospital...
Just a publicity stunt now, isn't it?
So you're suggesting that he would go back on that? That is saying that the hospital will not close and that services will improve. The only thing that certain other parties, including the Liberals, have got is to scare people and demoralise staff in the hospital by saying that the hospital will close. I use that hospital. My family use the hospital.
Okay.
In 5 weeks' time, my newborn son will be born there. I don't like this issue being used as a political
Why does he
football.
have to sign the petition if there was never an intention to shut it in the first place? Why is he signing the petition?
Well, perhaps he wants to reassure people.
It's still an issue. If the government want to be trusted, then let's have a government that we can trust. Let's look at what's happened on Iraq. Let's look at what's happened on tuition fees. People of Hartlepool aren't thick. They know that you can't trust the government.
I've got to actually agree with Jodie that the actual hospital issue, I actually fought the Save Our Hospital campaign for, well, as Jodie said, 3 years. I've been involved in it right from the beginning. This is not a by-election issue to me. This is actually personal to me. In the same as Ian, 2 of my children have been born in Hartlepool.
But we're all
Hospital.
talking about it, but there's nobody's actually suggesting shutting it. That's what I don't understand.
But if you look at what's actually being said, right? They were going to shut it. They were going to move it to Wynyard. Right? It was a group of dedicated local activists, of which I actually was involved, who actually raised this issue in the first place. The only reason that the hospital was under any threat was because of Labour Party policies, private finance initiative.
Okay.
We've seen it before, though.
Jeremy Middleton, I was going to come to you. I mean, if the hospital does turn out to be an issue, they're not going to really turn to the Tories to believe that the NHS is going to be safe in your hands.
Look, in 1997, in Kidderminster, the Labour Member of Parliament said that their hospital was safe. 1 year later, the Labour government closed that hospital. Now, the fact remains, at the following general election, the people of Kidderminster voted for an Save Our Hospitals campaigner. But it was too late. Now, if I am your Member of Parliament, if the hospital is closed, if any services on that site are closed, then I will resign and force a by-election. I would then call on the Secretary of State for Health, whatever party it is, including my own, to resign, and I would support a Save Our Hospitals campaigner.
Okay.
Now, if I make that pledge, will the other candidates?
Well, let's move on from the hospital. And Ian Wright, you raised the issue of antisocial behaviour and crime, and I read a document from the Safer Hartlepool Partnership which suggests Hartlepool is anything but safer. Over the last 3 years, there's been a 13% rise in crime, a 100% increase in violent crime in one 12-month period. Half of the people in the town feel unsafe, basically. Yeah, that's not a good issue for you, is it?
It certainly is. Since April, crime has been reduced by 25%. That's been done by working in partnership between agencies like the local police, the local authority. We're actually on top of crime in this town. I accept people are concerned about antisocial behaviour, and I'm really concerned about that, and that's why I've put that at the top of my agenda.
I would be concerned if there was a 100% increase in violent crime statistics at one stage in 12 months.
I was speaking to the police yesterday about this issue, and in particular I was referring to Michael Howard's comments about crime being epidemic in this town, and I said, do you find that sort of thing helpful? The police officer that I was speaking to actually found that, and in his words, a kick in the teeth. I think the job of the MP for Hartlepool should be to work in partnership and to provide the leadership to make sure that we tackle the yobs and the thugs, and I don't believe the other parties are doing that.
Well, let's open it up to other parties. I mean, have you got any strategies to tackle these crime problems?
The thing on crime and antisocial behaviour, I mean, if you actually look at what the Labour government have done since they came into power, they've brought in, I think it's approximately 700 new laws. Now, I don't believe, and UKIP don't believe, that new laws are actually the answer. What we need to do is we need to give the police, take the handcuffs off the police, give the police the powers to enforce the laws we have, not just bring in new laws. I mean, if we take it purely back to a local issue...
If I can just turn to Jodie, because you were accused of your party was accused of ignoring antisocial behaviour before. What would you say?
Let me tell you, we've been accused of all sorts of unbelievable things over the last 8 weeks. What I'd like to know is, why isn't the Labour Party concentrating? If they've done so well in government, if they've done so well in Hartlepool, why aren't we seeing that? Why don't their leaflets talk about their great achievements? Why is every single leaflet directed at either me personally or my party generally? What I will say on the shopper yob help helpline that Ian Wright helped set up is that if you ring that and you report somebody behaving in an antisocial way, you get straight through to Labour Party headquarters. Now, if that isn't a by-election trick to con people into thinking they're doing something, personally, I don't know what is. What the Liberal Democrats are saying is let's have less gimmicks like that. Let's get more police officers onto the beat. We have pledged to put 10,000 more police officers onto the streets. And I was speaking to somebody in Rift House only last week who said she hadn't seen one for a year. That's the problem.
Jeremy Middleton, to you, I mean, you're going to be really embarrassed here if you finish anything other than third, aren't you? You cannot hope for more than that. And the poll suggests you're only just ahead of UKIP at the moment.
Look, I don't know what the results of the election will be. You don't know, and neither does anyone else.
Why are you in a better position to challenge if you were the second party at the last general election, you're the second party in the council, yet all the polls suggest you're dragging way behind?
Well, on the contrary, I think we're really moving forward now. But what I would say is that if you look at the number one issue that people talk about on the streets, it is the question of crime. And we are the only party that has put forward very specific plans that will make Hartlepool safer. We will deliver more police. We will free them from red tape so that they are out on the streets where they should be. We will say to every hard drug addict in Hartlepool, you have a choice. You do rehab or you go to prison. We are the party of zero tolerance on crime. Now, what the point that I'm making is, if you want a safer Hartlepool, there's only one party with the credibility to deliver it, and that's the Conservative Party. The Labour Party have had 7 years, and they have failed to deliver.
OK, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Now, there's 14 candidates fighting the by-election, and here they all are. You can see the full list in more detail at bbc.co.uk/tees or CFAX page 17.